You are walking through a forest. The birds are singing. Everything feels normal. Then, without warning, they stop. Not one bird. All of them. The sound disappears so completely that you notice it immediately. Most people have experienced this at least once. A park. A forest trail. A quiet road lined with trees. One moment the air is full of movement and sound. The next it feels strangely empty. And almost everyone reacts the same way. They become uncomfortable. Not because anything has happened. Because suddenly it feels like something is about to happen. Most people assume this is imagination. The human brain finding patterns where none exist. A trick of attention. A coincidence. But the strange thing is that animals react to the same silence. And they react long before we do. The forest does not become quiet by accident. In many cases, silence is information. The question is why. To understand that, it helps to forget everything we think we know about birds. Most people hear birdsong as background noise. Decoration. A pleasant soundtrack added to nature. To birds, it is something else entirely. Birdsong is communication. A constant stream of updates moving through the environment. Territory. Food. Mates. Location. Safety. Every song carries information. Every call means something. The forest is not quiet most of the time because thousands of animals are constantly talking. We simply do not understand the language. Imagine walking through a city where millions of people are speaking at once. Conversations from windows. Voices from sidewalks. Cars moving. Doors opening. Life happening everywhere. Now imagine all of it stopping at the same moment. No voices. No movement. No sound. You would not assume nothing was happening. You would assume something important was. Animals often make the same calculation. Researchers studying bird communities have found that many species function as information networks. A bird does not only pay attention to members of its own species. It often listens to everyone. A sparrow may respond to a warning call from a completely different bird. A squirrel may react to an alarm call from a bird it can never become. A deer may freeze because birds above it suddenly changed their behavior. The information spreads beyond species boundaries. The forest becomes a network. And networks behave differently when danger appears. One of the clearest examples comes from predator encounters. When a hawk enters an area, birds often stop singing. Some flee. Some hide. Some switch to short alarm calls. Others remain completely silent. To a human, the silence feels empty. To the animals inside the system, it is a message. The message is simple. Something is here. Scientists sometimes describe this as the landscape of fear. Not because animals are constantly terrified. Because fear shapes behavior even when the predator is not actively hunting. A rabbit changes where it feeds. A bird changes where it sings. A deer changes when it moves. Entire ecosystems reorganize themselves around perceived danger. And sometimes the first sign of that reorganization is silence. But predators are only part of the story. Because birds do not go silent only when something wants to eat them. They also react to uncertainty. A sudden disturbance. An unfamiliar sound. An unexpected movement. Researchers studying animal behavior repeatedly find the same pattern. Animals dislike uncertainty. Not knowing what something is can be more dangerous than knowing exactly what it is. A visible threat can be measured. An unknown threat cannot. And silence often appears during those moments when the environment stops making sense. For a bird, singing is not free. It requires energy. It attracts attention. It reveals location. A bird that continues advertising itself during a dangerous situation is taking a risk. Sometimes the safest option is to disappear. Not physically. Acoustically. To become invisible by becoming silent. This creates an interesting question. If silence is useful, Why does it affect humans so strongly? After all, we are not small songbirds. We are not hiding from hawks. We are not perched in trees waiting for danger to pass. Yet silence still feels wrong. There may be a reason for that. For most of human history, silence was not neutral. Modern people spend their lives surrounded by controlled environments. Walls. Lights. Locks. Technology. Our ancestors lived inside information systems they did not control. The sound of insects. The movement of animals. The calls of birds. The behavior of other humans. Everything carried information. And losing information was dangerous. Imagine standing beside a river 200,000 years ago. Birds are calling. Insects are moving. The environment feels alive. Then everything stops. The river remains. The trees remain. But the information disappears. You do not know why. That uncertainty matters. Because uncertainty is where danger often hides. Some evolutionary psychologists believe that many human fears emerged not because they were always correct, but because they were useful. If 10 false alarms kept your ancestors alive through one real danger, the false alarms were worth it. Evolution does not reward accuracy. It rewards survival. This is why people often feel uneasy in empty hallways. Quiet streets. Silent forests. Dark rooms. The discomfort appears before conscious thought has time to explain it. Something ancient is paying attention. Not because silence always means danger. Because sometimes it did. And sometimes was enough. The fascinating part is that birds themselves may be responding to the exact same logic. A bird does not know with certainty that a predator is nearby. It reacts because the possibility exists. The cost of caution is low. The cost of being wrong can be fatal. Across millions of years, that difference matters. The birds that ignored warning signs disappeared. The birds that took uncertainty seriously survived. Generation after generation. Until caution itself became part of the system. This helps explain something strange about silence. People often think silence is the absence of communication. In nature, silence can be communication. A warning call says something. The absence of a call can also say something. Sometimes what is not happening matters as much as what is. Human beings understand this instinctively. A friend who suddenly stops replying. A crowd that suddenly stops talking. A child who suddenly becomes quiet. We notice absences. The missing signal becomes a signal itself. The forest works the same way. Silence becomes information. And information changes behavior. The deeper scientists study animal communication, the stranger it becomes. Many species appear to spend much of their lives monitoring information they are not directly producing. Listening. Watching. Interpreting. Animals are not simply moving through environments. They are reading them. Every call. Every movement. Every silence. Part of a continuous conversation. The forest is not a collection of separate creatures. It is a network. And networks develop patterns. One of those patterns is that danger often arrives before it is seen. A shadow overhead. A movement in the grass. A sound that does not belong. The response spreads outward. Birds stop singing. Small animals freeze. Movement slows. The system changes state. Long before the predator appears. Long before the human observer notices anything unusual. The silence was never the event. The silence was the announcement. And that may be why it feels so powerful. Because somewhere beneath language, beneath culture, beneath modern life, humans are still responding to the same signal. The forest becomes quiet. The information disappears. The world suddenly feels different. And without knowing exactly why, we pay attention. Maybe that feeling is irrational. Maybe it is a leftover instinct with no modern purpose. Or maybe it is the result of millions of years spent surviving in environments where silence meant something important. The birds do not explain why they stopped singing. The forest does not tell us what changed. The signal arrives without translation. All we know is that something feels different. And perhaps that is the most interesting part. Because the next time a forest suddenly goes silent, you will probably do exactly what countless animals have been doing for millions of years. You will stop and listen.